Hello, and welcome to this installment of the Toy Storage Nation series, TSN Conversations Unplugged. This series is based on questions we most often get at Toy Storage Nation. Today's topic is truck parking. Today's participants are Andrew Jones, owner of OTR Truck Parking and vice president of the Truck Parking Club, Jake Guso, co-founder and CEO of Rig Hut Truck Parking, Janet Rush, Chief Executive Officer and owner of Rush Truck Park, and Jim Blanda, Managing Partner of the Industrial Storage Brokers. Thank you all for being here today. Before we begin, I was hoping you could all briefly introduce yourselves and give us a bit of background. I do want to mention that Andrew Jones recently joined the Toy Storage Nation Advisory Board. Andrew, can we start with you?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Amy, and thanks for having me on. My name's Andrew Jones. I own OTR Truck Parking, owner-operator in the dedicated truck parking space, also vice president over at Truck Parking Club. And like Amy said, I am now part of the advisory board over at Toy Storage Nation.
Thank you, Andrew. And Janet.
Hi, I'm Janet Rush. As you said, I own Rush Truck Park in Phoenix, Arizona. We're newly into the market, but we find it really intriguing and we're excited to be on the podcast. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. And Jim.
I'm Jim Blanda, managing partner of Industrial Storage Brokers. Me and my team, we specialize in industrial outside storage properties, helping owners buy and sell those properties, which includes RV and boat storage and truck parking within that asset class.
Thank you, Jim. And Jake.
Thanks for having me, Amy. My name is Jake Guso. I'm the co-founder of Rig Hut. We're a software provider providing parking software solutions that are purpose-built for industrial parking applications.
Thanks, Jake. And I like your background with the
Thank you.
Rig Hut. So I'm going to just jump right in here into the questions. And the first one is, why is there such a critical need for truck parking right now? Can you explain the shortage of available parking? And, I know some stats that are out there that I've seen in a lot of places that for every one truck out on the road right now, or for every 11 trucks out on the road, there's one parking space, and it takes an average of 56 minutes for a driver each day to find parking. So first, I want to find out, are those stats correct? But anything else you can share as far as why there's such a shortage at the moment, and how has this led up to this? So Andrew, I'm going to throw that one to you to start us off.
Yeah, absolutely. And before I got into the truck parking space, I was going to be an RV and boat dedicated owner operator. That was my plan a couple years ago before I looked at these stats. And all of these stats are very true. The things that you just said, it takes on average, a driver spends 56 minutes a day looking for a truck parking spot. For 11 trucks out on the road, there's only one real parking spot. So it's this 10x horrific kind of problem. And if you go to the American Trucking Association website, you'll see that it's a crisis. And effectively, what I've seen, the federal and state governments have not really supplied great truck parking supply or any truck parking supply. And as your average Joe, if you want to go ahead and test out this theory, drive past your local pilot at 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and you will see it is completely full. Or even your local Costco, drive around, see how many trucks are just parked on the side of the road. So after looking at all that data, I couldn't help myself. So then got into the space.
Thanks, Andrew. Does anybody have anything else to add, or did he really kind of cover that?
To that point, we're based in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and South Florida is completely landlocked. So just bringing it to this market specifically, we work with owners that are buying properties almost an hour and a half, 2 hours north of here to allow for a cheaper price per day and allow those customers to, get a cheaper rate. But then those customers are going to drive almost 2 hours to park their truck each day. So to Andrew's point, I completely agree.
Jim, when you say it's a 2 hour, because I know with regulations, and that's something I'm going to get into, drivers are only allowed to be on the road for so many hours a day. Am I right?
Correct.
So when you're talking on tacking out those 2 hours to find parking, is that cutting into the time that they can actually be moving and delivering towards their delivery?
Yeah, and then they're making like a financial decision because it's like, okay, I lose a couple hours of driving in my truck, but then I save $200 on my rental rate. So it becomes a calculation for them. But in South Florida specifically, the rates on truck parking are just getting so astronomical that it's just pricing drivers out, and they're willing to make that drive. So the need is, especially down here, there's a huge need for it.
Got it. Got it. You know, and when we talk about there's a shortage and why is truck parking so important? And I brought up one is the regulations, but two, are there increasing demands for freight? You know, the drivers needing to take certain rest breaks and things like that. Janet, do you want to talk to that as far as what truck drivers are up against as far as, you know, they're limited on the time that they can be driving?
Yes, it's definitely a challenge. And when we decided to get into the truck parking world, which was approximately about 7-8 months ago, we saw the need. We are lucky enough to be in a heavy industrial area. I think as far as regulations go, you know, we can all do a better job as not just understanding the regulations, but understanding the needs of the drivers, hence shortening the trip. I think that as a whole, the industry, what I'm excited about is the new technology that's coming and giving the truck drivers the availability to find parking really nearby or plan their parking as needed. So that's really a good start to help them get on the road faster.
Thank you, Janet. Did anybody else have anything to add there? We got
I mean,
it.
if we're going to keep it on the regulation side, yes, there is, there's a ton of considerations on the driver's side of the equation in terms of regulations and, when they need to get off the road, that's driving where they're actually, finding parking or searching for parking. But just adding to the challenge is sort of the regulatory state on the landlord side, right? So it's not easy to open up one of these facilities, right? It's not tough to get one approved. All the local municipalities pretty much that we've experienced, they have a negative connotation associated with truck parking. So I think, there's something to be done on both sides. We've got to make it easier for landlords to open up or expand their existing facilities as well.
It's interesting you bring that up, Jacob, because a big part of what Toy Storage Nation has tried to do for the boat and RV market for storage is help the industry be able to educate the municipalities on what it is and the need for it in their community, and really have to come in and really be able to tell the story of it. So I can see that being an issue is the entitlement process for this.
I mean, everybody wants
right?
Everybody wants their, Amazon like 4-hour delivery, but no one wants to provide the infrastructure to allow the logistics companies to provide that level of service. So
Got it.
I will say this as a real estate broker helping people buy and sell these, that regulation and all of that does help the people that have the properties already because it creates that barrier to entry. So it brings cap rates down and all of that because someone can't just come and compete very easily. Therefore, their property becomes less risky to own and operate. So although it's hard to enter the space, once you've gone through that process, it becomes a net positive for you once you're there. Getting there, that's the hard part.
It's interesting you bring that up, Jim, because I know you work in other markets as well. And we talked about the fact that you do have experience in boat and RV. And that's something why there are certain folks who purposely will look first for facilities that already exist, a BC level that they can upgrade, because it takes away that whole need to have to go through the entitlement process. So it sounds like a similar type of situation that you deal with.
Absolutely. We get our favorite deals that people like to buy are exactly what you said. The Class C facility run down, but has the approvals and zoning there. You have to come in and whether it's a little TLC or completely redoing the property, because it can take a year or two of approvals. And sometimes you have a construction loan or you bought the property and that just eats into your returns there. So yes, those are the deals that we see get the most attention are your Class C property that you can easily convert to a Class A.
Got you. And it always comes back to this is why folks in every market should be dealing with the experts in that particular market. You may be a developer or an investor in a different type of real estate asset class, but understanding this particular one and working with someone that's been there, done that, it's got to be extremely helpful. It helps. You've been there, done it, right? You know some of the pitfalls that you can walk someone through. So
Yeah, and I would love to expand on that just a little bit
Yeah.
more because I genuinely think this is probably the hardest part about this business is just being able to execute and actually get the permitting done and talking to the municipality. I mean, originally I was going to have a facility in northern Indiana, and there was a lot of kind of EPA regulation around some of the land I was going to buy. So I said, you know what, I'm going to go to West Texas. So it was like, let's go to the most friendly kind of municipality out there and just do it. So
Yeah, and I
Thanks.
And
would,
then
what
so
I would say is that basically what I think is important also is prior to getting into the space or, looking at the property, really get an understanding of what your local truck parking association, um, some of their guidance. Also, know what the city is requiring for that particular zoning to be storage. If the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. So going into it blindly and just say, I want to put up trucking facility is not necessarily going to work. But if you know what is needed and you know how the game should be played, then that definitely helps in moving the process forward.
Thank you, Janet. And you make a good point because I've seen the national associations, but there are more state level ones as well, is what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So now that we know there's a need, we know there's certain barriers to entry. Tell me about the current solutions that are available out there for truck parking. I know that we are, trying to advocate for truck parking facilities. I know there are also, and Andrew, I want you to talk a little bit more about the truck parking club as well, but there are also sites that will look for available parking spots in all different types of situations. I think about the good old fashioned truck stop. I don't know how much that plays into to all this, but what are the different types of solutions that are currently out there if someone is, looking for truck parking?
yeah, no, I'll go ahead and start. So as a driver, right, and I need to find a place to park, and I'm in that 56-minute window. Like there's a number of different ways, Google Trucker Path, obviously Truck Parking Club, Rig Hut. I mean, there's a lot of different kind of, software solutions out there. And before I kind of get into those, I would just like to really stress that there is just so little supply that even if you do find good truck parking, it might not be available, right? It might be completely full, especially, talk about, Southern Florida. Gosh, those facilities are just popping. They do extremely well. Whereas, facility out in West Texas, where I'm at, there's a lot more land out there, but you know that you're going to have a parking spot. So as a driver, and that's how I see this kind of conversation going, is Google truck stop near me, truck parking near me. Those are like the top two that I see. And then, of course, for all the solutions out there, obviously partial to Truck Parking Club, again, Rig Hut, Trucker Path, just to name a few. But it's not like apartments where you have Zillow, apartments.com, and all these different kind of listing services. There's just not that many of them. So you have to be really, really refined in who you work with or what you utilize and if it works for your facility.
So how are drivers finding, for instance, truck parking club, rig hut, or just while they're out on the road, right? How are they currently finding truck parking? Is it word of mouth? Is it that there's marketing done to them to find these apps? Also, are they the ones that are working with the facilities, or is there ever times that, if they're working for a company and they're driving for that company, is there any assistance at a higher level where that company is searching out parking for their drivers?
Oh,
I know
go
that was
ahead, Jay.
multiple questions in one.
Go ahead, Andrew. I'll take it kind of a different direction.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you were to go ahead, let's say you're a fleet Night Swift, Schneider, for example, of a larger company, you have a dispatcher that will go ahead and dispatch you and say, hey, Mr. Jones, you're going to be parking at this truck parking facility tonight. It's already booked. You're all good. But a majority of the truck drivers out there, 93% are owner operators. They got less than 5 trucks,
Important
right?
to know.
So
Mhm.
and coming from the self-storage industry, those are the people we help all the time, are the B2C, right? So to that point, how do they find it? Typically Google first, and then, oh gosh, I got to find a parking spot or I'm parking on the side of the road. So
Got it. Thank you, Andrew. And Jake, did you want to add anything there?
I just wanted to throw in one additional sort of consideration. So we're talking a lot about like the over the road driver that's out of hours of service, but there's a whole other market of local drivers. Like I'll take South Florida again because it's my backyard. Most of these facilities down here that we break into, what we call managed parking facilities, which is basically your surface lot with no amenities. It's just parking with a fence and a gate, right? Those are primarily local drivers or local transportation companies that book parking or acres on a monthly basis, recurring for like their own, ongoing use. If you look at South Florida, the over the road driver, to Andrew's point, is they're kind of hosed, right? If you're not, if you don't find that loves that pilot or TA or something that Truck Parking Club has made available, in the back of a warehouse that you would otherwise never know, it's tough. But from an operator's perspective or from an investor's perspective, I would just encourage people to look at another segment of the market, like Janet. You get a bunch of monthly parking, through Rig Hut. Just for clarification, Rig Hut's not really like an aggregator. So we're servicing the landlord primarily, not the driver. We don't really help them find parking. But Janet's got, X, 200 or 250 spaces in her yard. 80 or 90 of them may be consistently booked on a monthly basis, right? Which is providing that kind of stabilized revenue. And then you're able to kind of juice that with the overnight guys. That makes sense? And would you agree, Janet?
I would agree. Yeah, we try to do a really good mix of different opportunities for truck parking: monthly, weekly, daily, hourly. And right now where we're at, we're seeing all those mixes being used continuously and growing. As far as how do they find the truck parking, when we do our analytics, we use a lot of Google information. And the biggest term is truck parking near me. So it seems like it's somewhat local when you're where you're at, but it does cross over now. And again, going back to the technology that's out there, you have the rig huts, you have the truck parking clubs, you've got apps that will not only help you find it locally, but also plan ahead. As far as the logistics companies go, my opinion is they need to communicate better with some of their drivers. They'll just say, go to this place, and and us being a high security facility, we require certain things to get in. It's a little bit of a pain sometimes for the driver, but they appreciate the security once they're there. And we are seeing a lot of repeat customers due to the technology that we're using and that we're afforded through Truck Parking Club, Rig Hut, and other apps. So I feel like it's getting easier because you're not going to see a big billboard anywhere, say truck parking 10 miles away, unless it's a municipality sign. So I think just keeping up on the technology and placing the tenants that have available parking is huge for them. And I see a huge growth in that, the truck parking near me.
Mm-hmm. And tell me if I'm recalling the right site, but I think it was on yours where the trucks can almost come as a kind of staging area, meaning they've got something to drop off at a convention center or whatnot, and they can't be there yet. There's never, we just always assume there's plenty of space for them wherever they're supposed to go, right? But they need somewhere to hang out until it's their time that they can get in there and drop off what they're bringing.
Another aspect that we offer, and we get used quite a bit, especially during our season here in Phoenix, is marshaling, which is an old term used back for trains. And basically, when there is a convention in town, it needs to be very strategic. They need to make sure all their drivers are there and are able to get to that location in a certain amount of time. We afford them the convenience of having an area to rest, order food. They're not supposed to leave. We help them out in any way we can while they're there. We also help, do you need overnight, are you staying in a hotel? How can we help you? On our webpage, we'll put, we have like, what's the nearest Walmart, Walgreens, Verizon store, post office, everything listed that possibly could help them get to their next task sooner than later.
Yeah, you kind of you're helping them and assisting them in kind of their business, right? You're a resource for them. That's really great.
Is that something you offer as like a fee for specific things, or something that you have as an amenity to just drive rental rates up across the board?
What was the first part? I'm sorry.
Is that something like you offer as like an individual fee? So if you need that staging area or marshaling, that you pay an extra amount of money, or is it
Yeah.
something that you just offer raise the overall rental rate of your property?
It really depends on the client. There's some clients that do marshaling. We're seeing this more via technology. They just want to know that the trucks are there and that they're ready to go and they handle it. There's other trucking companies that want that particular location. They have a marshaler on site, that need Wi-Fi and they're ready to go. If that's the case, and then there's also times when we do the marshaling. So it really depends on what the client is asking. If they're just asking to stay for the day, it's regular rates. If there's more in-depth need for something else, we're able to afford that to them.
Interesting. Thank you.
This kind of leads into the next question, and Andrew, thank you for when we were first talking about this, and he let me know this is kind of something that owners have to overcome, but it looks like now we've got the software. But traditionally within Class A boat and RV, you're renting at least for the month, right? Or usually they're renting per the year. But with truck parking, you've got monthly, daily, at times you may have hourly, you may have fleet. So how is that managed? And I know that there is software that is capable of doing this now, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about that, because that is a challenge, but it looks like has been overcome.
Yeah, no, and to give a little background here, when I first started my first lot, it was, oh, I'll just use self-storage software because that's what I was used to, right? Site link, store it, whatever it was, right? And I went, oh God, I have dailies, I have hourly guys, over the road truckers, that's a huge need. And that accounts for 40% of my revenue at my site, right? That's a huge chunk of revenue. So I needed to account for that. And it took me 3 months from, what was it, January 2023 all the way up until April of 2023, when I'm like, okay, this is what I'm going to use. I know it's not the end all be all, but I will use it for now. And now, luckily, in my personal experience, my entire yard now runs on Truck Parking Club, the monthlies, the fleet, the dailies, because in my mind, I want to scale and I want to really put a dent in the truck parking problem. And the best way to do that is to create supply. I mean, it's the same thing with my friends in RV and boat. Like, hey, you can have all the software in the world, but if you don't have any supply, then you still got to, put a shovel in the dirt. So
Thanks, Andrew. Did anybody else want to add into that, or?
Yeah, I'll
I have a
expand on
question
that.
go ahead, Jake.
If you got a question on that, Jim, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna ask, like, how you guys are doing more of this software type stuff. So you see and I'm talking to more clients. I was just curious if you guys saw certain markets that work better for a higher rate of daily versus monthly, or times of the year. Like, for example, in South Florida, we have a client that does all daily during the holidays, during the holidays like Christmas and all that, because he can drive the revenue up and get a little bit more, and he's never worried about a spot being vacant. So I was just curious if you guys see trends with monthly versus daily in certain markets or times of the year.
For us, it's not really market specific, it's more location specific. So like we could have two facilities a mile apart from each other in the same general location, right? One's getting booked more daily, one's, primarily full of monthlies. I don't have any objective rhyme or reason for why that is, because these two that I'm thinking about specifically have no like dominating exposure features to a highway or
Like
accessibility or something like that. Yeah, no, one's just primarily daily, one's primarily monthly. I don't know if you've got something else on that, Andrew.
Well, there is no store track, there is no Yardy matrix, there is no
Yeah.
like like when I talk to people that are interested, like, hey Andrew, how'd you do it? And I was like, I went on the DOT websites and then I created like I'm on like pro forma version number like 20 right now because I've had to like rethink every single deal that I look at. So if somebody's out there and they're listening and they want to create this kind of software, I would kiss you. I would love you to death because it takes me 30 minutes where it takes me 5. in RV and boat or self-storage to really,
Well, I'm asking the
say yes or
question.
no.
I hope that you guys would show me some secret answer there to show me all that data, but it's really just not out there yet. And that's what I'm saying.
It's, yeah.
Jim, it
We're in our
reminds me-
infancy.
Yeah, this reminds me of boat and RV when like 5-6 years ago, and we'd just be like, there really isn't much. It is now growing. You've got, you already start, the others building on that. So it will come. And also as there's more awareness to the market, that's when it starts to come in. But even sometimes we purposely had our editor go through and look at a lot of the data and kind of try to summarize it, because everyone's looking at it differently still, right? So that's the tough part about a new market. But what's really great is we're be able to help some of them kind of decide how they're going to look at it too. And I think you guys will have an influence on that, as well as being able to help whoever does decide to come into this space, guide them as far as the type of data that's needed and how things should be looked at. So it's very interesting just to see the parallels of where all this is at versus 5-6 years ago with boat and RV. So
It's changing super fast. Like, to Andrew's recent point, right? Like, we built our software, which is really like admin ops stuff, inventory, invoicing, billing, payments, access control, out of necessity for our own business as well. So we were operating these sites down here in South Florida, and we were like, we'll just use self-storage software. And we found the same problems that Andrew found, right? Like, we have a guy booking 20 spaces, he's getting 20 invoices, 20, it's 20 separate payments. It's just a little bit of a, it's a challenge. So that was kind of what sparked our interest. But from an opco level, like, we've got the real estate business, right? But then there's opcos that are actually like, Andrew, I believe you own your site, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Andrew's one of the guys that owns and operates, right? But there's a lot of just opcos that are leasing sites, or they're managers, right? And those companies are still in their infancy as well. But what's interesting to me is we're starting to see like some real M&A activity. Like, nothing that I have seen has been officially announced as closed yet. But like, guys are raising 30-40 million bucks to go out and buy, the mom and pop style fragmented kind of operators. So it's all changing super fast. I think truck parking is still like, if it's not the first inning, maybe it's the second, and there's a ton of opportunity for everyone.
And to add to that too, just to give you guys some insight, I had a background in self-storage as well. And, we'll do some triple net lease deals as well. But like, I'll have conversations with an RV and boat guy or someone that I talked to a year or 2-3 years ago in self-storage, and they'll see a truck parking deal come out. And now they're interested in asking me about it. They raised a new fund for it. To your point about the new capital and all of that, I'm seeing it where I had a conversation where someone that wanted nothing to do with it. A year later, they're calling me back and asking me how they can get into the space. So I agree with you.
Look at the like institutional iOS funds, right? If you're talking like 2020, 2021, you bring up truck parking to any of those guys, and they're like, yeah, don't want to talk about it. Don't call me. Now they're like, hey, let's revisit truck parking, because maybe I bought this portfolio of sites and I didn't hit my underwriting rates, or maybe it's taken me a little longer to fill some of these vacancies. These sites are mostly substantially improved, right? Like, the institutional funds are buying really high quality facilities. Yeah. It makes sense to me to activate them. You've got a bunch of different providers. Like, Truck Parking Club is great at providing exposure and all that stuff. You've got back of house sort of ops solutions like us. There's new companies popping up all the time. And I don't want to say it's easy, but it's definitely much easier than it was 3 years ago to activate these yards.
Do you see it, Jake, going the same way as a lot of folks in the funds getting, because I saw that too, as far as it would be a lot of the traditional way back when, and my husband was part of self-storage when it got going, 30 years ago. And he would always say that he sees a lot of similarity between what's going in boat and RV storage, similar to the opportunity of traditional storage 30 years ago. And we would talk about, as things progress, you're going to see more and more third-party management come in, because these folks, whether it was get back to what I was saying, the calls I would get would be a doctor or, someone who had a business, sold it. They wanted a business that they didn't have to be so employee intensive. So I get those, single or family, and then it would quickly go to the funds the larger funds, groups that had come together. So it sounds like that's coming into play here now. Do you see that there will be more of a movement for third-party management of facilities over time as this continues to grow, that that folks getting into it, kind of like the hands-off aspect of it?
Yeah, I mean, there's only if that was directed at me, I didn't
Yeah.
mean to cut you off. And yeah,
No, go ahead.
there's really only a few managers with scale that exist right now.
Mhm.
And I think everybody's still trying to figure out what their model's like. Some guys are doing, minimums with a small percentage of revenue. Some guys are doing all percentage of revenue and trying to mitigate risk to the landowner. I think as those models kind of stabilize, there'll probably be some M&A activity there. But basically, the point I'm trying to make is we've got to get to market rate on the management fees, I think, before that becomes like pervasive across the country. But yes, I do think it'll happen.
Well, thank you. Jim, I'm going to put this to you to start with, and then I'm sure everyone has something to say. But as far as the land, that's always the first question is, what makes an ideal piece of dirt or land, right? Location wise, what size wise, anything that you tend to typically look for if someone's considering truck parking.
Yeah, you definitely want to be in a major metro or near a major metro. It definitely helps. You want to be in between the major metro and a major like highway. A big thing that we're seeing right now is, especially when it comes to development, is turns off the major highway. These truck drivers, it's difficult for them to make a bunch of turns down small roads. So a big thing that we're seeing when we're looking for site acquisition comes down to how many turns are off that major highway. And then we go to the DOT and look at the truck traffic counts. When it comes to land size, I think the great thing about truck parking is that the need is very strong. So you can build a very large facility in a lot of markets, which then, to back into the management thing, allows for you to pay for a manager. So you want a site that's, I would say, you can get away with a 2-3 acre site, but I'd say 3 to 10 acres is where you really get that scale and allow for operational efficiency. So that would be my answer to like what we're seeing the most success on the site acquisition side of things.
Thank you. Does anybody have anything else to add on that? Just
Ye-
ideal location, I guess, or, land
Yeah,
type.
yeah, I'll go ahead and add. I love squares. I love rectangles. Any other kind of shape I hate. So, I mean, that sounds silly, but when you look at the dynamics of like your drive lanes need to be 60 feet instead of the RV boat, which might be 30 or 40 feet, like you got to really like comprehend that and think about that as a investor or a landlord. And then I think personally for me, and this is really counterintuitive, and some of my peers have even called me crazy, which is fine, but if you can get me a piece of land next to a Pilot or a Love's, like I will just be the overflow. I don't care. I'm fine with that because again, they're going to be full by 2 or 3 p.m. So
That's funny because I have clients that say the exact opposite. So I'm not surprised you get pushback there. They don't want to be near them, but I see your logic there. Your logic is that the supply is so constrained, I'll just be the overflow. It's not going to be a situation where they can just get their need there.
and yeah, and I'll counter that because that's what I used to think. I want to
Yeah.
be away from them, right? But some of the most successful sites I've seen, even in the Midland, Texas market where I'm at, like the successful sites are right next to the Pilot. Like they're like almost full overnight, and they use like zero to no technology. It's just like here's an open gate, go ahead and park, pay me $50 a month. That's it.
And you talk about a lack of data, but those companies that are spending that much money to put those centers there are doing a lot of research. So you can just piggyback off of them, go right next to them. They did all the demographic research for you. You just go right next to them. You save on some upfront costs there.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of have to be gorillas in this new business because we don't have a lot of resources
Yep.
and like piggyback off of the big guys because, well, they could have done this, but they didn't. So here we are.
Yep.
Some of that is relative. It reminds me of the mall effect, right? So when you go to a mall, you'll have a Macy's, a Dillard's, a Neiman's. They're good competitors though. And in the industry that I'm also in is auto recycling and scrap metal. In the area that we're at, there's 20 to 30 wrecking yards. We don't look at each other as competitors. We look at each other as complements to each other's industry and company. So I think there's room there for those sites or nearby, the Flying J's and the Pilots and the Buckies. But again, you've got to make sure that you're getting the client base where they don't have that ability to house them. So that's, there's due diligence. You can't just say, oh, there's a Bucky's open up, I'm just going to open up a truck park. There's a lot of more research involved.
Janet, and you said your truck park has been open for what? For about 9 months, you said? Or did I hear
June 15th, we opened up.
So I'm
2024.
curious, it'd be interesting to know, how did you determine your location? How did that come about, that piece of land for you?
Well, fortunately, I have been in the auto recycling scrap world for 30 years, and over 30 years acquired for about 40 acres of heavy industrial property. I've also transactioned on quite a few other pieces of property as well. When we were reallocating like our business model and looking at something that was less labor intensive, we looked at truck parking, and being that I knew the industry somewhat because, we cater to drivers and my other business, and asking, what are you guys looking for? What do you need? I have the land, I'm going to repurpose it. And we put it up for lease, and there was a lot of interest in, tenants using it for truck parking. And I basically said I could do this. And, just making sure everything was in line accordingly. I'm really enjoying it though. I think that it does remind me of a lot of the other businesses that I'm in, as far as the growth, the opportunities, and just a great group of people.
Thanks, Janet. And you bring up a really great point that, and this is another thing I've talked to folks about with truck parking. A lot of the folks that are getting into it are either in businesses that are kind of adjacent to some form of auto, truck, that type of thing, or truckers themselves. Is that who you're seeing, come and have interest? Are you, and you mentioned, Jake, just, it seems to be expanding though, those that are interested, but do you see a lot of people come from the trucking world that have interest in this, and has it opened up, and how much?
If I had to put a number on it, I'd say of our customer base, maybe 20 or 25% of them, they were a trucking company or had some other sort of like logistics infrastructure. And then they started parking trucks, for their own use, and then maybe some friends. And then they were like, hey, I might be, making as much money in the primary business as I am in the parking, and it's a lot less work. So we have seen, a lot of that sort of transition. What's cool for us to see is most of our customers actually expand. So like they may come on with one site, and then, we optimize that, figure out how to automate the inventory access, gating system, all that. And then they're like, okay, this is profitable. Let me go try to do this again and again. And that's really how we're going to solve the overall problem, right? To everyone's point, there's a supply shortage. The only way we're going to fix that is by adding more. And it's going to be done by the private sector. I know there's this like heated debate about paid and unpaid parking. Like it's going to be the private sector, and it's going to be paid.
Oh, go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, and just I get this a lot too, especially a couple years ago when I first decided to do this and said RV and boat. It's like, well, the federal government, $200 million. This is amazing. And then I actually go and look at the project, and I'm like, well, they're developing what, 200 spaces? And with $200 million, a private investor can go make, let's make 50, like really good supply. And of course, it's going to be paid, but at least it's going to be efficient, and the supply is going to be added. So.
Security. I would think that's got to be extremely important. You've got folks that are often, and sometimes they're staying in the truck overnight, sometimes they're not. But I would think security is one of the most important things when you're looking at facilities. What's necessary for the security side? I would think a 24/7 access with a gate that someone that can get into, cameras, fencing, lighting. What do you see as important around security?
Well, one of the approaches we decided to take was to be a higher security facility. And what did that look like? Reaching out to TAPA, understanding what the needs of the insurance side of trucking is looking for in regards to securing their loads and their drivers. So we implemented, we've got, on the exterior, we not only have fencing, but we have military razor wire. We just make sure no one wants to get in that shouldn't be there. Definitely have the keypad situation. We use software where it's one user only. We're able to run reports to know who's going in and out. We also have a 24-hour security guard. We have staff on site. We do weekly, 3 to 4 times a week, we do drone footage. We have that accessibility at any time. There's so many other aspects, lighting, making sure that the truck and the trailer that come in at that spot are still the truck and the trailer that are leaving, and making sure, those type of things. Great PTZ cameras. I mean, the list goes on, and we're constantly looking for new innovations for security. There was the concern which I was shocked at when I met with the TAPA leaders, was that Arizona was the second largest cargo theft state in the country. So, and being that we're really customer orientated, we wanted to make sure that we did everything in our ability to make sure that that wasn't going to be an issue for us. And, thank goodness it hasn't. Just, making sure that everybody's staying on task. You do get people that are like, well, this car's coming in, and he pulls up to a truck, and it's an Uber driver bringing food, so we created a spot for Uber drivers to meet outside the gate with their providers. It's doing those little things and signage and notices, and but in a welcoming way, making sure we're not doing this just for the storage and the cargo. We're doing that for the drivers. And we've had some great feedback. No one's ever complained that you're too secure. They love the security, and we have this couple that comes by, monthly. They're running loads, and they say that our facility is the best because we have a beautiful mountain view too. So that's a bonus. But it's always something that we're looking at, the new technology, the new, and just fencing and gates and operations. So there's a lot of aspects for that, and it is a big money grab, but it's something that we found we needed.
You mentioned a keypad for entry, so access. Are they having to get out of the rig and utilize that, or and I'm thinking from the standpoint of, as I know, boat and RV and traditional storage, there's some technologies out there that allow you to do it from, for instance, your cell phone, but that means then you have to have downloaded the app and all of that, whereas you're getting folks who may be only coming to you one time, right? So how does that access at the gate work for you? What type of system are you using?
Well, we're looking, in fact, Jake and I are going to be talking about his system that he's implementing right now with the QR code, and having staff meetings and talking to our drivers. What's the benefit of a QR code? Some, prefer a touchpad, some prefer an app. One of the things that we noticed at, company-wide is when people actually get out of their truck to either key in or scan a code, you actually see the driver. And again, going back to security, that just brings an extra level for us. We do have a higher pad as well, but they tend to get out anyways. And if there's a difficulty or for whatever, like their app's not working, we're able to talk to them through the security pad.
Got it.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different ways that we do access control. The primary way that our customers use our system is phone-based. So drivers booked on Rig Hut's reservation system basically have a portal, right, where they can make payments, adjust their reservation, and they can trigger gates, right, as long as they're there. They can also text to open from their phone, where we're searching that user based on their phone number, verifying that they're allowed within the facility, and then we'll trigger the gate. That's how our system currently works, and then we're augmenting that with a couple of products that we got coming out in June, hopefully maybe July, to tie in the camera system. So we'll be able to do object detection, anomaly detection, and bring those things that you may want to know about to your attention in advance.
Thank you. What else is important? For instance, when you're looking at folks who might be staying there, restrooms, the ability to put air in tires, that type of thing. What are other things kind of as your standard that a truck parking facility should have?
Yeah, what I always say when I talk to especially these, kind of larger self-storage facilities that are adding in truck parking club as like an ancillary revenue kind of stream or profit center, whatever you want to call it. Um, if you don't have restrooms or trash cans, both of those things will end up at your facility, right? That's the nature of the beast. I mean, if you're a daily driver, if you got to go, you got to go. And if you don't have a restroom, unfortunately, that does happen. Same with trash cans. Um, and again, as I look at like the monthly versus the daily, you definitely at least need to have that kind of foundation there, lighting. I mean, I could go on about security, but when it comes to Janet, I actually look up to her as an operator. She's probably one of the most sophisticated operators in the nation when it comes to security.
She's
So
what we would consider a Class A operator with what she's doing.
right. No,
But
no,
not even, yeah.
it's yeah, I mean, and I've seen a lot of them, and so kudos to her. But yeah, that would kind of be some of the bare bones. And then of course, showers. I would love to see a lot more facilities in new supply with free showers. That would radically change the entire trucking industry because truckers have to pay for showers. And personally, I don't think that's right. So
And then from like a value perspective, we started the conversation by talking about the barrier to entry and ability to get these things approved. So like me, when I look at these deals, is like all of the amenities that you guys talked about increase the rental rate, which increases the value of your property. So if the hardest part is getting it all approved, you want to go through all of these steps to make it a Class A facility, or you took the hardest part and then limited your income potential, which limits the value of your property. So if you're going to get it all approved, everything you guys said, we see drives the rental rate up, which drives the revenue up, which drives your value up. So if you're going to go through the hard part, make sure you do all of the other steps to drive the value of your property up.
What's interesting here too is we talk about community within boat and RV storage, right? And I know it's different for truck parking because people are coming and going, but you do have probably some that are utilizing you every time they're coming through. And I would think word of mouth amongst those in the trucking community gets around if somebody's got those extra services and things, that they're wanting to stay there.
Well, and not only having it on site, but having it accessible and letting them know that, you go onto the website, we have a mobile tire repair. We have facilities on site. We have things nearby. There's certain things that we include to help the driver get back on the road as quickly as possible. But obviously, we prefer that these vendors be vetted. And if they can't come on site, we help arrange those repairs as well. So one of the things I did want to mention about security is we just got a new AI monitoring company that actually just feeds into our cameras. And this is something both for RV and for truck parking and any type of storage facility. And we're really happy with it. It's AI monitoring. They know our facility. We met with them basically saying, we know that people are going to be coming in and out 24 hours, but we want to be able to make sure if someone doesn't look like they should be there, that we're aware of it. It is going back to some of the amenities that may cross over with RV and truck parking. I'm still trying to see where that crossover be, and maybe Jim may have some insight. Are you seeing any RV facilities having, hosting more trucks? And are you seeing those types of, the showers being needed now, let's say?
Yeah, when it comes to like the crossover with RV and boat and truck parking, it really comes down to the layout of the site. Like the trucks require more of a turn radius. So if you can corner off a piece of it, like I'm seeing some owner and operators that have an RV and boat storage facility that they just opened and are having trouble leasing up, offering some ability to do that, but it does restrict the accessibility into the site. So unless you planned it from the beginning, it could cause some issues. And then on the showers thing, whereas a lot of the new developments I'm seeing, they're adding showers because again, that just drives so much more attention to the site and it makes it easy to lease up. Because a lot of how I look at it's always from an investment, just buying and selling these things. So the upfront time it takes to get a loan to buy the property, get it approved, and you need it to lease up quickly so you can refi back out and get out of that construction loan. So all of these little things that you do allow for lease up quickly. And that's why also the RV and boat guys are allowing some truck guys in there to get that revenue up, because interest rates are killing people right now and they have to get back into a conventional loan and out of a construction loan.
Jim, are there anything, with the traditional boat and RV storage facilities that are having trucks come in, which we think is a really, just like you were saying, it's a great way to get filled up. Have there been any issues with it being two different types of demographic? Do you need to kind of try to separate a bit? Or
I would definitely, yes, we definitely see that issue. Because you have the RV and boat's recreational. You have people leaving and coming for vacation, and then you have a different group of people that are working, trying to move quickly. You have totally different wavelengths. So it definitely can create some issues. We don't see, eventually you want to like go into one way or the other. So like we're seeing it as like supplementary until they can replace those people with more boats and RVs is honestly what I'm seeing. Then if it's the other way around, it doesn't really work the other way around, because if you made these parking lanes so much bigger and the drive aisles so much bigger, you're losing so much revenue per square foot by allowing smaller vehicles to park there.
are you seeing anyone that's coming into this, say they have two different scenarios? Either they have a piece of land that just, they thought about it for boat and RV, the numbers aren't panning out. Are they ever then switching and thinking perhaps that truck parking could work there? And I know that would be a special circumstance given the area, that it's located. The other is, what if the thought of someone kind of coming into truck parking because it doesn't need to be covered, the development is expensive, starting with truck parking, but maybe over time then adding boat and RV storage.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of crossover there. So like what I see as the sites that allow for the most optionality are like a site that's what Andrew said, a square or rectangle site, 3 to call it 10 acres. And then the open, like you can get more revenue if you do a covered RV and boat storage site. But if you have an uncovered site, it allows some optionality. And then a building, call it 2,000 to 10,000 square feet. So if you do truck parking, you can do some repairs in there. But then what we also see as well, to kind of throw a curveball into it, is we're also seeing companies come and ask to lease up the whole entire 5 acres, like a triple net lease type thing. So I'm seeing a lot of crossover there. And what we like to do is just look into the highest and best use there. We take a look at what are the truck parking rental rates, what are the RV and boat rental rates, what are the operational expenses there, and then also comparing that to if someone comes along and gives you a triple net lease, that's a net income number, how does that compare? But yes, we're seeing a lot of crossover, especially if the city is giving you a hard time in a certain approval. And it's kind of one way or the other, where the truck parking lots are a little rougher looking, where the RV and boat, they'll say you can do an RV and boat facility, but you have to have the high wall fence and stuff like that. So you want to look into all those things. And before you spend too much money, especially adding covered parking, because then it's hard to switch back to truck parking at that point.
Mm-hmm. Got it. It's amazing that the different angles of crossover here. Interesting. Yeah. I want to be cognizant of the time. I thank you all. I would keep it for another hour here easily, and I have more questions. If you don't mind, let's go ahead and do this, because if there's something that we didn't want to cover, I want you to be able to, bring that out very quickly. But if we could go around and, for everybody watching, give your contact information, your name, obviously, company, how they can reach you, email or phone. If there's something that we didn't add in here that you think is important for somebody to know that's listening within a limited time, the 30-second kind of thing, that way people can get in touch with you if they have any further questions. So let's go ahead and start with Andrew.
Yeah, of course. So you can find me, Andrew, at truckparkingclub.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn. I'm very prolific on LinkedIn, LinkedIn/IN/ADJones5150. And no, I mean, anybody listening, this is a brand new market, very exciting, and would love to chat with anybody.
Thank you, Andrew. And Janet.
Yes, you can reach me on our website or social media at Rush Truck Park. We're located in Phoenix. You phone, email, smoke signals, please reach out. I'm a little old school. And the one thing that I would add to the truck parking community, another thing that I think is vital when we talk about security, because for some reason I'm fixated on that, but the TAPA administration is also trying to grade these truck parking facilities. And when their larger clients have a place to park and they park in a higher grade lot, that they're a preferred vendor. So there is some other opportunities there. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to be an A+, but definitely take some of those little steps. You know, if you can't get the most sophisticated cameras, you know, get a digital AI monitoring company. Get with Rig Hut and on their software and all their improvements and the technology. If you're looking for more projects and more growth, you know, Rush Truck Park, we've partnered with several different truck parking apps, and there's lots of opportunity in that. The last thing is that we also have a crossover in the truck parking side. We're seeing quite a few RV tenants, you know, more long term. It's Arizona, so we have a huge RV opportunity as well. So find every opportunity you can, make the most of it, and try do whatever you can to make it most secure for your customers.
Thank you, Janet. And Jim.
So you can find me at industrialstoragebrokers.com. My email is jim@industrialstoragebrokers.com. Give me a call too. I'd love to get on the phone. Easiest way to get some quick communication. Numbers 954-466-5855. And yeah, I would say the one thing I would add is like we're seeing some groups that are spending a lot of capital on sites without really understanding the end value that, you know, it could be, whether viewed by a buyer or a bank. So if you own a site or are looking to acquire something, would love to talk with you and see what we think of the project and all of that.
Thank you, Jim. And Jake, along with giving your contact information, I was hoping you could give just a very brief overview of the capabilities of your software, because it's an operating software platform.
Yeah, so what Rig Hut does is automate your inventory components, right? So like who's in your yard, where are they supposed to be parked, what do you have available, how do you represent that out into the market, automate your invoicing, billing, and payments, especially for those recurring monthly customers. We've got an access control integration, so drivers open gates from their phones, landlords, you know, track the in and the out, and they can set lockout parameters for, you know, things like non-payment tied into some reporting. That's Rig Hut. What I'd say to the audience is kind of reiterating what I said earlier. Don't feel like you're like late to the game. It's still super early, in my opinion, truck parking and outdoor storage in general. If we can be a resource to someone in, you know, any capacity, we always love talking to people in the business. You can visit our website or call our office, 305-413-0294.
Thank you, Jake. Very, very fortunate to have experts like you on today, and you're really paving the way for others that are coming into the market, and that's an exciting time. There's so much opportunity. So Toy Storage Nation is going to continue to kind of cover this market, want to give resources to folks who are looking to get into the market. So thank you so much for joining us. I hope you don't mind. I will be reaching out to you in the months ahead, and I'm sure I'll have more questions, and so will our audience. And we're very fortunate to have Andrew on our advisory board, really, you know, getting the word out for truck parking. Want to give my contact information real quick. My name is Amy Bix. I am president of Toy Storage Nation. You can reach me at 602-909-3910, or my email is just my namesake, amy.bix@toystoragenation.com. If you've gotten to this podcast, not via our website, but straight from YouTube, Toy Storage Nation is an education media brand. We focus on the Class A boat and RV storage market. That being said, we're realizing that market is growing to encompass a number of things. We almost just need to say vehicle. I can't even just say recreational vehicle anymore. So if you're interested, give me a call. Check out our website, toystoragenation.com. So thank you all for being here today. Very much appreciate your time and expertise.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Amy.
Thanks, Amy.